Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, world, and welcome to our first international webinar entitled Academic Management and Leadership Challenges in the Pandemic and Post-Pandemic Era. Okay, we would like to welcome you all. We would welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Ronnie Amorado. Hello, Doc. Good morning. It's good afternoon there. Good noon. Okay. And first and foremost, we would like this is made possible through our partners. Okay. Let me share to you our partners. Our partners for today's webinar, the Association of Licensed Professional Teachers Thailand, the Inter-Asian International Education, and Pinoy Lit Takers in Thailand Facebook group. Okay, so thank you so much for this group who made this international webinar possible. And we would like to acknowledge also our participants from different schools around the world. So there are teachers from India, US, Philippines, and Thailand who join our international webinar. So Ms. Jen?
All right, so as well as I would also like to welcome other fellow educators coming from other parts of different parts of Thailand, and we are very happy that you are joining us today this afternoon to learn more about what is academic management, all about leadership, as well as our challenges as educators in this time of pandemic. Even after this pandemic, what changes would we face as educators and school leaders? By the way, before I forget, my name is Jemima Sonoria, and on behalf of the Inter-Asian International Education, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. It is our privilege to have you with us this afternoon.
So first and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our participants. So let me read some of our participants, especially to acknowledge the school where they came from. Where was the chat? Okay. Mary Rose de Guzman from the Philippines, Miss Normie Ralios from Hilongos, Leyte, Philippines, and we also have Miss Lorna Llaneza from DepEd SDO Abra, and we also have other participants, Miss Diana Ingente, watching from Padre Mariano Gomez Elementary School, Division of City School, Manila. So there are more coming, so please, to all participants, I want you to change your name in Zoom, your name and the school where you are affiliated to, so that we can acknowledge your school and at the same time you as the participants. Thank you so much. And we also inform the participants to please turn your microphone in a mute mode, okay? So that there will be no extra noise that will occur, okay? We also have Miss Katrina Paula from Metro Manila and Miss Rose de Guzman once again from Sampaguita Elementary School, Camarin, Caloocan, Philippines. Welcome, Miss Mary Rose. Okay, and we also acknowledge the presence of our moderators. Our first moderator is no other than Mr. Gary Everett Kapili. He is an EFL teacher of Anuba Miltaburi School, and he got his diploma in teacher education at Inter-Asian International School, batch 2006. Another reactor for today's international webinar is no other than Mr. Marvin Recuenco. He is a social studies teacher of Satrawitia II School. He earned his diploma in teacher education at Inter-Asian International School, batch 2008, and he is the class valedictorian. And he also passed the licensure exam that year, September 2018. Another reactor, a product of Inter-Asian International School, Mr. Fritz Marvin Agoto, a science teacher Blanco High School. Diploma. He earned his diploma in teacher education batch 2018, and he also passed the licensure exam in that year. So thank you so much, reactors, for giving us your time. Okay.
All right, so later on after our keynote speaker will share his insightful message for everyone or information for everyone, the reactors shall share their various insights with regards to how they will apply the knowledge from today's webinar to their line of work. Another reactor would also reflect on the things that he learned from this webinar and how will those new knowledge help him as an educator in Thailand. And one of our reactors as well shall share about the differences between leadership and academic management challenges in Thailand and in the Philippines. So we are very much delighted to have our reactors this afternoon, as they are also our proud products of Inter-Asian International Education. We would also like to recognize other participants. Welcome Assistant Professor Hamidul Azad from Prime University, Bangladesh. Good afternoon. We also have Sir Richard Cheng, I believe an EFL teacher from Surat Thani School. Good afternoon. We also have, we welcome you, Sir Mark Louis Limbo, watching from Imus City, Philippines. All right, so welcome as well, Sir Jobert Bayan from Cavite State University. We are very happy that you're here with us this afternoon, as well as to you, Ma'am Aloha Oriel. Good afternoon. And you're also delighted to welcome Ma'am Marites Galinato from Sarasa Suite Ed Surat Thani School in Thailand. All right, so we are expecting more people to come and be educated and enlightened by today's webinar.
Last one, Ms. Jen, would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Daniel Conkel from Surat Thani School. Welcome, Mr. Daniel. Okay, so let's...
All right. So we are, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Our webinar will start in about a minute. So please settle down. And we also would like to remind you to turn your microphones on mute, so we will not, the speaker will not be interrupted as he have his main discussion later. And we also would like to request everyone to change your name, not only your full name, but also include the school where you are affiliated to, or maybe your current location as well. Okay, so that we can recognize you one by one later. Thank you very much.
Okay, so first, before we start our international webinar, we're going to ask the presence of God. So we're going to share you the screen for a prayer. and the Philippine National Anthem. Okay, so once again, to all participants who are now joining us, welcome to our first international webinar on management and leadership challenges in the pandemic and post-pandemic era, brought to you by InterAsian International School Association of Licensed Professional Teachers Thailand and the Pinoy Leap Takers in Thailand Facebook group. Ms. Jam?
All right, once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jemima Zanoria, and on behalf of IAIE, we would like to welcome everyone, all the educators around the globe. So we are very much delighted to welcome not only teachers, Filipino teachers in Thailand, but also other educators coming from the other parts of the world. As we have mentioned earlier, we have participants coming from other countries, not only in the Philippines, but we also have from Bangladesh among the others. We will also like to welcome the other participants coming from Ilongas Leyte, Suratani School. We also have participants from Davao City, Philippines, Taraburi, Thailand, and we also do have participants coming from International Academy of the Millennium in the Philippines. So we welcome everyone. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this afternoon.
Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Edgar Eligan, the CEO and the President of InterAsian International School, for his opening remarks. Okay? Let's show you this. Dr. Amorado, Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, University of Mindanao, my beloved home for 13 years and my alma mater. Ms. Edoncio Barros, Administrator for Operations, InterAsian International Education, Bangalore, Thailand.
Miss Jemima Sanoria, the My Teaching English Program Coordinator, Inter-Asian International Education, Mr. Gary Everett Capini, Mr. Marvin Agoto, and Mr. Marvin Recuenco, the reactors, with the seminar, our participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The post-COVID era in Thailand offers ample opportunities to widen our network with other institutions for the betterment of our constituents in this land, and that teaches us a lesson to upskill our pedagogical skills relative to virtual learning. Whenever a situation calls us to deliver instruction via online, we are better equipped to face the challenges in the future. Today, Thailand is in a new normal, new era with hopes for a better future. But we remain compliant to the protocols set by the Thai government to avoid the recurrence of the said pandemic. This international, whether on national and leadership challenges in pandemic and post-era, brought to you by the International Education. Allow me to introduce to you the Inter-Asian International Education. Okay, its vision. The IEI envisions to become internationally recognized and responsible institution that shall produce globally competent teachers and education managers who shall nurture the innate potentials of students in Southeast Asia and the whole world through a national cohort program and training programs. Mission. The mission of the IAIE is to contribute to society through pursuit of transnational education cohort program, training programs, and research at the highest levels of academic excellence to benefit the whole country of Thailand and the neighboring countries. Goals. To recruit teachers with the teaching and managerial skills, making them relevant and responsive to the needs of the community. To provide students wide array of pedagogical knowledge to answer the emerging academic needs of students in Thailand and the neighboring countries, and to provide educational services for the OFWs in Thailand to obtain an academic qualification for teaching and grow in the teaching profession, to instill the culture of academic excellence through hard work, dedication, commitment among our students. Placing you ahead by providing affordable and quality education, this company is accredited by the Professional Regulation Commission as International Service Provider for Continuing Professional Development with the accreditation number 218152. And it is registered at the Department of Business Administration with the registration number 010556012197 The ASEAN International Education announces the opening of the graduate programs in June 2019. We nurture the research, leadership, curriculum design skills among our students through intensive mentoring by our accommodating Bangkok-based professors, placing you ahead through affordable and quality education. This is my advertisement anyway. These are the programs we offer this school year. Masters in Education Major in Educational Management with thesis, Masters in Education Major in Teaching English with thesis. We commit to nurturing research, skill, leadership, and curriculum design skills among our students through intensive mentoring by our accommodating Bangkok-based professors to ensure that our students are placed ahead through affordable and quality education. And about our products performance, our guidance performance in the National Licensure Examination for Teachers in 2018 IEIA got 100% passing rate. And last year, 2019, we got 84% passing rate. Our services include logistics, lab review, workshop seminars, 120 our diesel certificate, music teacher certificate, and advanced grammar for teachers. Our professors and lecturers include Mr. Rene Samares of Mathematics, Mr. Kevin and Mr. Meli Palma, Lucila Iligan, Don Gibardos, Romel Cabua, Rubabal, Ms. Dimaima Sonoria, Professor Noel Yu, Dr. Hotel Dick Arcangel, and yours truly. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax. Enjoy this new academic encounter with our speaker, Dr. Ronnie Amorado. Welcome everyone to our webinar.
All right. So thank you very much, Dr. Edgar Iligan, the Director of Inter-Asian International Education. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you our resource speaker, our keynote speaker for this afternoon's webinar. So we are privileged to have our keynote speaker today. He is a highly regarded book author who received the Leaders and Achievers of Davao Award of 2019, a proud Davaoeño and a Hubert Humphrey Fellow at Maxwell School of Citizenship, Syracuse University, New York, from 2009 to 2010. He is the Senior Vice President of the Academic Affairs of the University of Mindanao, Philippines. Let us all welcome Dr. Ronnie V. Amorado.
Thank you, Jen. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. This is also a very good opportunity as an example of inter-Asian collaboration, and through the efforts of the IAIE. And I'd like to acknowledge my friend, Dr. Edgar Iligan, who came to my office, I think, a couple of years ago. No? Sana maulit ulit. No? And then I'd like, of course, to greet our fellow Filipinos in Thailand. But I also understand we have participants coming from different countries as well. But I'm surprised we also have many participants coming from the Philippines, and no less than even in Davao City. So let me share to you my screen for my talk. Okay. My internet might be interrupted, but I'll just be back immediately if ever. You know, the Philippines has one of the worst internet connection in the whole world. But basically, this is academic management and leadership challenges. Okay, in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. Now, I understand in Thailand, you have already relaxed your quarantine conditions, but again, this might also be very effective on how to deal with post-pandemic conditions. This is my flow, and the flow will determine also will suggest the rationale. No? Basically, what is academic management and leadership, especially because this is in the context of our educational institutions. And then what are the typologies of academicians? And then what is a peripatetic academic? And how can academic management meld with quality assurance? No? And what are the pandemic and post-pandemic challenges? And how can academics lead in pandemic and post-pandemic situations? I have about 55 slides, but some slides I might not go into the details. I will just emphasize on the most important slides. But I already gave a copy of my slides to the IAIE. So you might, if you want a copy, you can request them for your copy. I'm more than glad to share to you my presentations. So let me to define what is academic management and the typologies of academicians, let me start by posing a bit of history here. No? The concept of academe or academia refers to a community of scholars where intellectuals meet and learn. And this is inspired by the legend of the Athenian hero Academos and made part of Plato's works in establishing the first academy in 387 BC. The first academy is the first school ever established in the world, okay, in our history. Okay. The concept of university actually later followed suit later at a later century. No? Also known as community of masters, scholars, and sages seeking for the whole truth together. Okay? Seeking for the whole truth together. Okay, coming from the Latin phrase "universitas magistrorum et scholarium" and began somewhere in the 10th century. So that is how the concept of the academe, no, and the people under it, so-called academicians, came into being. With the upsurge of webinars, I think participants will now be called webinarians. No? So meron tayong mga academicians and meron tayong mga webinarians. No? So who are the academicians? Okay, there are several roles here, but there are two classifications to organize the different roles. Many of us are, in one way or another, at one point in our history, in our experience with our schools, we take one or any of these roles. We have the so-called seekers of knowledge, and we have the so-called managers of knowledge. Okay, managers of knowledge are also known as academic administrators. Who are the seekers of knowledge? So these are the thinkers, the philosophers, the learners, students, or proteges of students, scholars, researchers, intellectuals, or the masters, no? The scientists or experts, fellows or experts. Fellows here in the sense of academic fellows. Okay, we also have sages or gurus. Ito yung mga with wisdom. Na? We have professors, gurus, educators, gurus, masters, doctors. Masters, doctors in the sense of higher learning. Bachelor holders, undergraduate, may not necessarily be considered as academicians because we prepare our students for in the bachelor degree either for professional practice as to prepare them as professionals later on, or they will go to business. No? But for those who will proceed in the pursuit of higher learning and take their master degree and doctoral degree, then they belong to the academicians. Who are the managers of knowledge? So you have university presidents, you have academic vice presidents, you have the deans, principals, program heads, coordinators, accreditors, assessors, trainers, coaches, monitors, evaluators, even agency regulators. In the Philippine setting, of course, you have the Department of Education for basic education. You have the Commission of Higher Education. You even have the TESDA, the skills training, even the PRC. No? These are the direct agency regulators. Their counterparts in Thailand, these are mostly ministries of education and other regulatory agencies. So basically, academicians are either seekers of knowledge or managers of knowledge. Okay, later on, I can expect there might be a lot of questions because in my previous presentations with other webinar groups, many lament that many of the seekers of knowledge, when they now take some positions as academic administrators, they stop to seek knowledge, which is true, because you will be trapped, okay, in managing, okay, instead of seeking knowledge. No? That could be a very true experience for many of the academicians. Okay, so given that, what is academic management? Okay, academic management refers to the proper exercise of allocating and utilizing resources in academic institutions in the service of academic goals and academic standards for various internal and external stakeholders. Take note, academic goals for many of schools are expressed or articulated in their so-called vision, mission, core values, or VMV. And the academic standards, program standards, regulatory standards, government standards, all of these standards for their various internal and external stakeholders. Primarily, the external stakeholders are our students and their parents. Okay, immediately. Okay, so that is the general definition of academic management. This is a very interesting classification from Dr. Buller, citing his book, one of my favorites, entitled Positive Academic Leadership. He had three types of academicians or academics. Meron tinatawag na positive academics, prolific academics, negative academics, disposable academics, perfunctory academics, and acerbic academics. And many of these roles, depending on our mood, sometimes we play these roles. Sometimes we become positive, prolific. Many days we become negative, even disposable, perfunctory, and acerbic. So what are positive academics or academicians? These are the ones who provide leadership in their areas of expertise, okay, and specialization, constantly creating opportunities and value adding, never satisfied on what has been done, and make a difference to create impact. They always aspire in doing something different. They are hopeful and anticipative as they find opportunity in adversity. So these are the so-called positive academicians. They always create value. Okay? They always contribute and complement, and never satisfied of what has been done, and they always make a difference, an improvement every day. And of course, positive academicians aim to create impact wherever they go. And a very good close cousin of the positive academicians are the so-called prolific academics. They contribute and not content with mere credentials, okay, and position. They participate and engage or offer ideas or take action. They are felt by others because of their brilliance of ideas and being imbued with spirited disposition. So, positive academics, necessarily, they also become prolific academics. Anong pinagkaiba? The prolific academics, as they create value, they always engage or offer something new. They always produce something. Okay? Prolific academicians produce books, journals, products, ideas, programs. Okay? So when positive academicians, as they aspire for creating value, they also become prolific academicians when they produce something tangible as value creation. Okay, so the two are the most ideal actually. We have many negative academicians. Negative academics, they only see the short-term comforts against long-term gains. And there are many of that in the ranks of academicians, according to Dr. Buller. Okay? They only see the short-term goals or the comforts against long-term gains. We also have disposable academics. Okay, who are the disposable academics? These are just they are just satisfied with their degrees and eventually stagnate, producing nothing beyond being a daily teacher. Many of academicians, okay, they limit themselves to pure teaching, and then sadly, if they don't improve themselves, they don't seek for higher learning, the tendency is to stagnate. Okay, and these are categorized as disposable academics. So many will not agree, but in the book of Dr. Buller, he classified those kind of academicians into this category. Essentially, disposable academics are the opposite of prolific academics. Okay? We also have perfunctory academics, similar to disposable academics. Perfunctory academicians are merely content with the minimum standards of teaching in the classroom, uninvolved and disengaged in school initiatives and innovations. So basically, given the different classifications, apparently, academicians are now challenged, called upon to just go beyond, to go beyond just teaching, by the way, to go beyond the classroom, to go beyond your practice of professional teaching to become prolific or positive academics. Certainly, we have many acerbic academicians. These are the people who are predisposed to complaining and criticizing without positive contribution, very critical of others, and they tend to condescend as they cloak in scholarly scrutiny. This is very sad because while this is true in other organizations and industries or sectors, in government, in the religious orders, even the families, even in business, also happening in the academe, okay? Especially because of competition, they tend to pull down others, no? For self-preservation, okay? To promote oneself for aggrandizement. Okay, so these are acerbic academics, okay? And they tend to destroy our purpose, our pursuit of seeking for knowledge and even for managing for knowledge. So just a flash, a very useful framework from Dr. Buller. In my latest book, I also espouse the concept of peripatetic academics. Okay, this one is a result of my recent book, which came out last year. It means walking the talk. Okay, peripatetic means to walk the talk. It comes from the old concept, from the ancient concept of the Greek peripatoi, which means in the modern times the covered pathwalk. So it derives from the Aristotle's concept of talking or teaching philosophy while walking with the students in the peripatoi. Okay, before the first academy came into being, okay, our teachers before, our philosophers, okay, they taught while walking in the ruins or in the so-called covered pathwalk known as peripatoi. So many of my slides here, many of my inputs here come from my book. And for those who are interested, the book is published by Vibal Publishing. They have their website if you want to order, or you can email me, or you can get in touch with me, or through the IAIE if they want to. They can help you contact the Vibal. If we conduct online executive course on leadership, we will require the peripatetic. No? So we will discuss with Dr. Eligen and the company's company. No? If we can offer online executive course on leadership, we will use mainly the book on peripatetic. No? But for now, for the webinar, let me use some of the principles here, no? To see the overall concept of academic management and leadership challenges in the context of the pandemic and post-pandemic era. So, educators, academicians, we are known as modern peripatetics because we need to revisit the concept of role models and ascendancy. We just do not teach by what we say. We also teach by what we do. We have to walk the talk and not talk the talk. We live by what we teach, actually. So we are we are role models. We are the physical embodiment of what we teach to our students. What we teach to our students, we actually teach to the society. And we are the embodiment of that. That's why educators are necessarily peripatetic academicians. My book consists of 3 parts.
I think our speaker is gone. There must be some kind of disconnection there.
All right, so while waiting for our keynote speaker to join us again. Oh. All right, so let's review some important points that he was able to share with us this afternoon. So first, he mentioned about, or he was able to explain to us what is the academe. All right, so as a form of review, the academe is a community of scholars. It's not just a building or a place or an institution, but it is basically, and most importantly, comprised of people, not only people, but scholars who work together in order to bring about changes or contribution to the community. Now, he was also able to share about academic management, and he also classified the academics into various types. So we have what we call the positive academicians. We call them the prolific academicians, whom we should aspire ourselves to become. So as academicians, we don't just want to have the title or to have long names so that people would recognize, when people recognize us, they would recognize us by our qualifications or by our academic background. Rather, our purpose, why we want to study further, learn more, earn various degrees, learn master's and doctorate degrees, because we want to contribute to the community of teachers and learners. So most importantly, that should be our goal. Why we aim to earn, postgraduate degrees, because as what Dr. Amorado mentioned a while ago, one of the problems is that people nowadays, like teachers, educators nowadays, they're very focused on earning, various degrees here and there, not knowing or forgetting the main purpose why they really have to search more knowledge, and that is to serve, to serve our students, to serve our communities, and be able to provide solutions to problems. All right, so hopefully, also, Dr. Amorado made mention about his book, Peripatetic, The Practical Lessons on Leadership. As he mentioned, the book is available in the Philippines, but we believe that it will be possible for us if the Filipino teachers or even school leaders here in Thailand would also like to get access of that book. All right, so Dr. Amorado is back. Sir Ronnie, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So as I mentioned a while ago, the internet in the Philippines is so tragic, especially now because of the online classes, the whole country. Okay, so at least I warned you early on, but so I stopped here. I think I stopped here in this
yes.
slide, no? And then the last sentence I said, eventually management and leadership are cultural in nature. Chapter 3 is the crux of the book. It discusses and dwells on special problems of ethics and leadership integrity, especially on the unexplored areas of ethical leadership. No? But it also gives special focus on the euthenics, practical ethics, and the concept of virtuousness or virtuosity, no? And then integrity, and then citizenship, and the oath of leadership. The book consists of practical lessons, about more than 100 practical lessons, about 30 frameworks, and several caselets per framework, and keywords, no? And then some social commentaries. No? So if you are really interested, you can visit the Vibal website. There's a bookshop there. Or let us request the organizers, the IAIE, to offer the online executive course on leadership, about 4 to 5 Saturdays, now with assessments. Okay, we'll do that because we will use the Peripatetic book. So if you will tell me, leadership books are replete, many books already in the bookstores, in the school. Yes, so what is new with Peripatetic? Okay. there are 6 themes here. One, it demystifies the leader. Many of the leadership concepts, leadership books, they refer to the person as a leader. My book does not focus only on the person. In fact, it demystifies the person. Why is that? Because leadership is not inert. Meaning, all of us can become good leader or bad leader. So therefore, the traits of a good leader and the traits of a bad leader are common to all of us. That's why leadership, in peripatetic, my proposal is that leadership cannot just be the leader as a person, and leadership is not static. Okay? At any point in time, we can commit bad leadership decision or good leadership action. So the key here is cultivation towards good leadership traits and try to suppress our tendencies for bad leadership traits. Okay, so this is what will peripatetic will offer, no, and makes it different from other leadership books. Okay, so here our leadership predicaments today are ethical, cultural, organizational, political, economic, and more importantly, spiritual in nature. And the combination of all of these factors are so powerful that leadership has become a complicated, no size fits all, and no clean cut concept. Therefore, if you will say, is it proper to say he is a good leader or he is a bad leader? In peripatetic, I would say it is difficult. He or she can be a bad person, but many times we can be good leader or a very bad leader. It now depends on our cultivation of our leadership decisions and leadership actions. And the challenge peripatetically is that to be a good leader means to be consistent in doing good leadership decisions and good leadership actions. And this is part of chapter 3, where I focus on what is good, okay, and for the common good, which is known as eucracy. Eucracy is the study of the rule of what is good. And for my book, there are about 7 elements of eucracy: okay, euthenics, practical ethics, virtuosity, trust, integrity, citizenship, and Athenian oath. I will not go into the details. These are the subjects for the online executive course. No? But let me just focus first and mention about euthenics. In euthenics means basically fixing the environment so that people will become good. Imagine that, no? Making our environment good or better so that people will become good. And there are 2 sub components of euthenics: eudemics and eugenics. Eudemics means improving external conditions, and eugenics means improving genes or some inheritable factors. This is important because during the pandemic crisis, okay, or in many places, the post-pandemic era already or conditions, we have to survive the virus by improving our eudemics or our external conditions. And how do we do that? Basically following the health protocols. And following the health protocols is a eucratic action, meaning the rule of what is good. Now, what is good here is debatable because in the Western countries, their individual good conflicts with the common good. That is why you will see debates in the US. Many people, many Americans do not want to wear the face mask because it's against their individual freedom, without knowing that wearing the face mask is essentially for the common good. As the saying will go, your individual freedom will stop when the freedom of the collective will begin. So in peripatetic, my advocacy is that eucracy means espousing what is good and for the common good. It does not stop only on what is good for the individual person, but for what is good for the common good, or what is good for the collective, or what is good for the community. Okay? So individual good yields to the good of the community. So that's very important lesson for our pandemic crisis and the post-pandemic conditions. at this point, I'd like to have some audience participation. I'd like to ask, no, for you, in your own opinion, no, what do you think are the traits of a leader, the traits of a manager, or the traits of an administrator? No? Maybe we can just use the chat, and then Jemima will help me. What are the common answers from the audience? No, this is important because we need to distill the three roles here: no, leaders, managers, and administrators. Why? Make the dictionary definitions, if you will read all of them, they have overlapping definitions. It seems like one is just the same as the other. But there has to be a main basic distinction. There has to be some differences. So maybe I'd like to pass this on to Jem. Can you help me in the chat group to all the audience? What do you think for you are the traits of a leader or a manager or administrator? You can just choose. No? You can just choose.
All right, so we have one answer here from Sir Kenneth. I would like to clarify, sir, is that are those the traits of a leader, manager, or administrator? So Sir Kenneth said compassionate and versatile.
Okay.
So I would guess that this refers to leader. What are the traits of a leader? All right, so how about our reactors? Maybe you would like to also share your ideas on our chat box as to the traits of a leader, a manager, and an administrator. So most of our reactors, by the way, Dr. Amorado, are students are undergoing the Master of Arts in Education, major in Education Management. So here we have from, Mr. Josephat, traits like consistent, knowledgeable, and understanding. From Mr. Donji, he said a visionary. All right, so Sir Kenneth said that leader, compassionate and versatile, particularly administrators. Sir Marvin Requenco also mentioned that a leader is someone who inspires and influences. From Ma'am Marites, traits of a leader must show positivity. From Ira Cash, a good leader reflects or demonstrates accountability and has integrity. From Mr. Daniel Kunkel, traits of a leader, empathetic, passionate, and inspiring. From Mr. Richard Chang, leader is someone who communicates, listens, and is flexible. All right.
Very good. Sige. So, thank you very much for those answers. We can resonate for those responses. But if you'll notice again, this is the effect, no? We seem to exchange one for the other, no? And that's good because many of our leaders are also managers, and many of our managers are also administrators. That's why it's difficult to really define the boundaries. But in peripatetic, I tried to distill and I tried to distinguish one from the other, no? So that we'll be able to clarify our specific roles. So if I may proceed, before distilling, let me just present this very quickly, and we all agree with this. No? A manager may not be a leader. I think we all agree with that. There are many good managers, but who are also very poor leaders, and vice versa. In fact, no, many leaders who are good are actually poor managers. No? So if you will look at the first features, no, the first line of features, managers are those who take formal and institutional positions. They refer to formal authority, okay, in the organization. Meaning, you cannot be a manager outside of your organizational authority, okay? So always, a manager is formal, while the leader can be informal and institutionalized by charisma or influence, not necessarily by organizational authority. Okay, so that's the basic. Now I will elaborate on that. No? And this one is very important, especially during the pandemic crisis, no, there is one perspective that looks at two types of leadership, uh, which is mechanistic leadership and organic leadership. Okay, mechanistic leadership is very common to very big organizations, and there is very clear boundary for division of labor and specialization of tasks, and there is clear hierarchy of authority, and the one who must be followed always are those in position of authority. So take note, there's a key word here, the position of authority. In organic, it doesn't matter. Okay? Who will be followed are the persons with specialized knowledge, and they go wherever they are needed, and they are not necessarily the ones in position of authority. So, for example, your problem is all about water in your house, then you go to a plumber. You don't go to your boss, who is not necessarily a plumber. In mechanistic model, the boss is the one deciding. In the organic model, it's not necessarily the boss. Who will decide? Those people who have the expertise or who have the specialized knowledge. So that is the mechanistic and organic leadership. Why did I bring this up? Because during the COVID crisis, where do we go to? Who do we follow? Okay, those who are in positions of authority or the experts. Apparently, the experts who are the health and safety experts. No? Those medical scientists, the nurses. No? Okay, these are the experts during the COVID pandemic crisis. Okay, so I'll skip that. And of course, ideally, a good leader or a good boss is not bossy. Okay, to be bossy is different. Okay, in fact, a good boss or a good leader is not bossy. Now, I'm using these frameworks, these common concepts, because we need to distinguish now how do we differentiate leaders, managers, and administrators from among themselves. No? In peripatetic, the first framework is the so-called leadership triangle, and I tried to distill them by their distinct roles. If you look at managers and administrators, both of them are getting their power from their positions of authority in the organization. Take note, from their positions of authority in their organization. Okay? Outside of their organization, they cease to become managers and administrators. Unlike leaders. Okay? Leaders, with your leadership skills, you continue to lead, even if inside or outside of the organization. That's one. Secondly, managers, their basic function is to optimize. To optimize means getting the best out of the least, more output with less input. That is utilizing scarce resources. Yes, I meant in academic management because you are trying to utilize the resources to get the optimum or maximum output or outcome. That's why financial managers, they want savings. Okay, we also manage time. We want to do the most out of the given time. We manage conflict of people. We manage materials. We manage supplies. Okay, because we know that there is scarcity, and we want to make the best of it out of the least. That's why in heaven there are no managers, because there's no need to allocate, because there's abundance. Okay, so that's the role of the manager. Administrators, the keyword here is to administer. Basically, they execute, and execute means to implement. Administrators are people who are best implementors. They execute well if they are given what? What do they execute or implement? Instructions, laws, programs. Okay. For example, a training program, when the administrators receive the order to implement a training program with a budget, they will implement them. Okay? Or building administrator. What does a building administrator do? They ensure that safety protocols are followed, parking areas are followed, okay? The exits, okay? Those things are in place. So they execute. If the instruction is not clear, administrators cannot execute properly. Take note, if the program is not clear, administrators will fail. If you want administrators to fail, don't give them clear instructions or clear directives. Okay? Because they are not trained to do that. They are only trained to execute. They are not trained to optimize. Normally, administrators and managers, they conflict because managers will tell the administrators, please make sure you have savings in your approved budget. And administrators will tell us, why will I save that the budget is already approved? So sometimes they conflict. Now, leaders who are not expected to optimize or execute, their main source of power is to influence and to inspire. So those who responded about the traits of leaders, about influencing, inspiring, you're correct. Because leaders, essentially, when you lead people, okay, you want the desired behavior from them by influencing them or inspiring them. The question is, what if the managers and administrators, they get their power from their positional authority? Where do leaders get their influence and inspiration? Okay, so we will also tackle this. And in my book, Peripatetic Lesson number 3, the tone at the top influences the mood of the organization. Leaders, managers, administrators, they define the mood of the organization. Okay? Without their support, okay, regardless of what people will do, it will not be successful. Okay? The law of influence, borrowing from John Maxwell, no? From his 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And then, how do leaders influence? We have 4 here types of influence. The most basic is the so-called emulation. Emulation means serving as the role model. If you want other people to follow you, you have to be the embodiment of that action. For example, if you want follow to come early to the office, the leader must come early also to the office. So he must be seen as an example. If you want people to wear face masks, then you have to wear face masks also. You have to set the example. Suggestion is you have to start mentioning what is good, what is bad, why it is important. So you suggest to your people, wearing the face mask is very important, not only for you, but for other people. Now, persuasion is appeal to conviction. You now go to convince, to the level of convincing people. If you don't wear your face mask, this is what will happen. If you wear your face mask, this is what will happen. You appeal to the heart, to the brain, to action. So, emulation, suggestion, and persuasion are the tools of the trade of good leadership. The last resort is coercion, where you penalize people. I am the boss. If you will not follow this, you will be in trouble. So that's coercion. Now, many literature will tell us bad leaders will always make use of coercion. So people or good leaders will have to use coercion as the last resort, only. Okay? The most common really is persuasion. That's how to influence. Now, to influence actually means you have power. And these are the different sources of power of leaders, no? To denote the ability to produce a certain occurrence. The most basic, the lowest form of power is the so-called legitimate or position power. This is the power that you derive from your position in your office or in your organization. Okay? So that's position power. And position power or legitimate power is the power that gives you the authority to give coercion. You'll be able to coerce position power, meaning you have the police power. You have the power to penalize. Okay? The higher level is the so-called political power, your connections, your network. Politicians are very adept in using political power. Expert power is the power of the professionals. These are the expertise or specialization. Academicians belong to this category. We have this kind of power inherent to our expertise. Okay? And the highest form of power is referent power. also known as charismatic power or charisma. And there are many sources of charisma. Again, here I'd like to pause. I'd like to ask Jem, we can ask the audience again, what do you think will make people charismatic? What is charisma? How do people get charisma? So what makes leaders charismatic? Maybe you'd like to ask the audience, no, their answers for this. Jem?
Yes. All right. So the question is, what do you think will make people charismatic, or what
Okay.
makes people charismatic, right? All
Yes.
right. So we would like to hear the thoughts of our participants. So we have Ma'am Reina. She said that one is charismatic if he or she is a good speaker and an influencer. Also, a charismatic person is someone with good characteristics, I believe so. From Sir Rex, a person who is charismatic is made charismatic by means of his or her achievements. All right, from Sir Reynaldo, someone who has good personality, which was seconded by Ma'am Marites. She also supported the idea of good personality, positive vibes. All right, from Ma'am Lorena, who has the integrity to convince people. From Sir Robert, has a sense of humility, confident, positive thinking, possess interpersonal skills.
Yeah, and according to Miss Mary Grace Federizo, someone who is goal-directed, and according to Mr. Ray Tolentino, a person to inspire his people, according to Mel, a visionary with brilliant character, and guapo, according to Mr. Rax Pacorsa.
Very good. Very
Yeah, and
good.
also like a great what to call this? Make people charismatic is also maganda, creative. A charismatic person has a good personality. It has been seconded by Mr. Mark Louis Limbo. And according to Miss Mary Rose de Guzman, someone has extraordinary skills in communication. Wow. And according to Miss Annabelle Hualde, it is your way of having connection to the people, how you inspire them. And last one, according to Mr. Lyndon Ferrante, have a good potential in public service and a good perception and good concept and well-oriented and educated. Jem?
Very good. Very good. No? I'm struck. No? I'm happy to hear the name of Mary Grace Federizo. Jem, if you can remember her, no?
Yes,
Our
my
good
student.
friend.
Yeah.
Yes,
There we
very,
actually have a lot of like alumni,
very
UM
good.
alumni.
So,
Yeah.
hi to all of you. No? So,
Yes,
I'm happy with
and
those answers. No? Yes, it's
yeah,
true. The ability to articulate is a form of charisma. It's called eloquence. Okay, eloquence or rhetorical eloquence makes people charismatic. But eloquence alone, without brilliance of ideas, is also useless. So another form of charismatic skill is the brilliance of ideas. What can you contribute in your meeting, in your program? Okay? Kasi kung eloquence lang, walang brilliance of ideas, that's being talkative, no? That's hanggang salita ka lang, no? But the brilliance of ideas also without articulation is also useless. So we need good communication skills. That's correct, no? Somebody also mentioned good looks, guwapo. Tama rin yun, no? Especially because expert power, especially the scientists, they don't give regard to how they look. That's why academicians also need to look good. No? How do we look good? No? Mag-supply din, maligo din siguro. Fix ourselves, be presentable. Okay, be presentable. So this will shape our personality development. So tama yung mga yun. No? These are all sources of charisma, eloquence, brilliance of ideas, communication, good looks, okay? Also, talents, by the way. If you have talent, no, you know how to dance, to sing, you know poetry, you know how to cook. During the pandemic period, we discovered we can cook. Okay? You have business skills. Talent is basically also a source of power. No? Now, let me go back to good looks. No? good looks alone is fleeting. Okay, it's not sustainable. Kaya our celebrities, our artists sa Philippines, in the context at least of the Philippines, yung mga artista, they're pretty, they're guwapo, maganda, pero hanggang doon lang din. But they don't speak well, wrong grammar, or they don't have talent, so useless lang din. No? But yes, good looks is they are very important as well. No? Now, the highest form of charisma, okay? The highest form of charisma is the so-called humor, okay? Or wit, okay? Humorous people, even if they don't have position power, even if they don't have political power, even if they don't have expertise, okay? In fact, even if they don't have the credentials, but if you are humorous, you can command. You can even win elections. If you are humorous, you look so handsome or pretty to many people. Okay? So, now the problem is, can we develop humor? That's difficult. I have not heard of a training program or a seminar to make people humorous. So if there is, I will attend. I will attend. I know of trainings that make people look good, or train people for eloquence, even train people to think critically for billions of ideas. But to make people humorous, I have not heard yet. No? There are people who are naturally humorous and wit. So some lessons would tell us maybe it's good to be surrounded, to belong to people who are humorous. So maybe you will be infected by their humor. And many are also saying, maybe to become humorous, let's always smile. Let's smile. Okay? So Jemima has perfected that skill of smiling always. No? Even if she cries, she's smiling. Okay? So that's a charisma. But imagine a good leader or a good manager or a good administrator who has all of these types of charisma. You are in a position of authority. You have some networks, that's political power. You have something to offer as an expertise. If you are a prolific or a positive academics, certainly you have expertise. And you have the different forms of charisma. Okay? You have some humor, you have some talent, you have some good eloquence and brilliance of ideas. That makes a very influential leader, manager, or administrator. Okay? And hopefully, academicians are all like that. So we are all leaders in our own right. But in fact, where there are no more leaders to follow, we must become one, according to Keda in the movie Alpha. The challenge really is not so much on the quest for leaders, but on the search for leadership in each and every one of us. In peripatetic, my advocacy is that we are all leaders in our own rights. We are all managers in our own right. We are all administrators in our own right. Ideally, okay, those who have good leadership skills should also know managerial skills and administrative skills. And those who have managerial and or administrative skills should also possess the leadership skills. Okay. Here, another framework in terms of sources of power, as I mentioned a while ago, the sources of power in terms of the positional, political, expertise, and referent power, okay? And all of the managers, leaders, administrators should possess all of them. Let me also show this, the management triangle, wherein we have authority, responsibility, and accountability as the three members of the three roles in the triangle. Now, all of us have responsibilities. And to be responsible means the ability to respond to situations or referring to our duties, while accountability is basically the answerability, okay, of our responsibilities. Now, this is very important because if we are given responsibility and we are made accountable for those responsibilities, but we lack sufficient authority, it is useless. It is useless because we cannot be held responsible and accountable without authority. We need authority to do something. Okay? If you want things done, give people the proper authority. But authority alone without responsibility or accountability is also dangerous. That could lead to abuse, actually. Okay, so the three in the management triangle needs to come, no, in harmony. This one also is the administrative triangle using the three core functions of implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And we all know implementation, okay, based on our plans, it's difficult to implement if there are no plans. What are we implementing? So administrators will find it difficult to execute or implement something that they don't know of. If there are no plans, there are no targets, what do you implement? Now, evaluation is the most common in terms of gauging impact or success of implementation. But in between, we have monitoring function. Many people will interchange monitoring and evaluation. But basically, monitoring, it's different from evaluation because monitoring is ensuring that implementation is near your plan or target. If implementation is departing from your plan or target, monitoring can interfere or intervene to ensure that what you are implementing is according to your plans and targets. Because in evaluation, there is no more interference or intervention. Evaluation is now more of judging impact or success or failure. So these are the three administrative triangles. Okay. Now, all of those leadership triangle, managerial triangle, and administrative triangle, I borrowed from John Maxwell again in his 360 degrees leadership. Okay. These are the four angles. We lead down, we lead left and right, or we lead up. And many of us are trained as supervisors. That is why we are very good in leading down. We are very good in managing, okay, administering or leading our people, the subordinates under us. But according to John Maxwell, we fail in leading across or leading left and right. Who are the leading across? These are our co-equals, the co-managers, the same position with us. They are very important because they can either be our champions or allies. So we fail that. And all the more, we fail in leading up. How do we lead up? How do we manage our bosses? How do we manage our leaders? How do we lead our leaders? So in peripatetic, I have there lesson number 12. To win your boss, you have to think like your boss. Okay? To win your boss, you have to think like your boss. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. You will fall out of grace, no, from your boss. Okay? So that's the 360 degrees leadership, the ability to lead down, lead left and right, and lead up. And using that as a context, this is the integration of all of my frameworks in peripatetic. No? I integrated the three triangles with the 360 degrees leadership. And I have a lesson here. The world is better off if good leaders are in positions of authority. And leadership development is a lifetime work in progress. It doesn't mean that you have attended one seminar or you had get your degree on leadership, then you are already perfect leader. No. Leadership development is a lifetime work in progress. Why is that? Again, in peripatetic, I espoused because it is inert. It's like a cell phone battery. Many times you will have a low bat, you will encounter being an empty bat, so you need to recharge as well. So we are like the cell phone battery. So we need to always recharge our leadership skills. Okay? And if we meld academic management with quality assurance to achieve and sustain excellence in higher education. So for many schools, it is not enough to learn academic management and or leadership development. We need to meld this with quality assurance. In the Philippine context, okay, especially given by CHED, no, and even with PRC, no, quality assurance is to ensure that mechanisms are in place to achieve desired quality outcomes. And quality is the alignment and consistency of the learning environment with the institution's vision, mission, and goals, demonstrated by exceptional learning and service outcomes and the development of a culture of quality. And the Philippine government defines quality in 3 levels. No? Quality as fitness of purpose, and that's why you need strategic management here. What is really the goal of your organization? how do you expect your organization to achieve excellence, no, as part of your quality statement, no? And another one is the quality as exceptional, distinctive performance, and quality as developing a culture of quality, system of continuous improvement. Now, for the information of the Filipinos who are working abroad, you can be happy because the Philippines educational system is requiring all Filipino HAIs to undergo quality assurance. That's part of their accreditation and recognition by Philippine government. So that Filipino graduates in the Philippines become competent and employable abroad. Okay, and other countries will also recognize our graduates and our curriculum. So that's part of the quality. And we establish quality measures. No, how do we do that? Again, your management framework. You comply with regulatory standards. You meet and exceed program standards. Okay, especially the Philippines, the program standards and guidelines. Okay, and then even undergo independent external evaluation. No? So you have ISO, even the Philippine Quality Assurance, and the ISA. No? And take note, we also need to align internationally, okay, with our international standards. So there are two tracks here, and I will not go into the details, but basically to meld with quality assurance, you need to establish strategic management framework, and you need to align curriculum development. How do you align curriculum development? If you look at the second requirement, aligning with the Philippine Qualifications Framework, or aligning with the ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework, and aligning with the ASEAN Universities Network for Quality Assurance. If you are in Thailand, your schools, the educational institutions are expected to align with the Thailand Qualifications Framework, or the TQF. All of the country level qualifications framework are aligned with the AQRF and the AUNQA. And that means if we have quality assurance, our excellence, our standards, our academic management and leadership development are able to facilitate and lead our schools, okay, to be competitive internationally. But all schools, all educational associations will have to undergo these two paths, no? To establish strategic framework and to align curriculum development. Just to give you the overview, I will not go into the details in the interest of time. ISA, or Institutional Sustainability Assessment, is the requirement of the Philippine government for all Philippine schools, okay, to be recognized. Without ISA, no schools will be recognized. You cannot be recognized. And if you pass the ISA, you have the assurance that these schools, the systems, the curriculum, okay, are aligned internationally with the standards. Okay, so that is the requirement in the Philippine setting. Okay, and these are the parameters. There are 5 key result areas. I will not go into the details, but how do they evaluate schools here? In 4 parameters, no? The presence of the system, and the extent of implementation of the system, and the outcomes of the system, and the effectiveness of the system. So schools are evaluated into these 4 parameters using the 6 or the 5 key result areas. If you qualify, the theory is that the schools become competitive abroad, okay, including your graduates. This one is another QA mechanism. It's very important because the Philippine Quality Award is the highest award of quality assurance in the Philippines. It is mandated by the Public Act. It is patterned after the American Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. Okay? It is the highest level of national recognition for exemplary organizational performance. Okay? And then there are about 7 categories. Okay? And there are 2 sets of parameters wherein any organization is evaluated. The so-called process parameters, okay, which includes the approach, the implementation, the learning integration, and then the outcomes parameters, learning, trends, comparison, and integration. Now, here's the key, okay? Because it will take years, okay, to undergo the PQA in the Philippines. There are already many business organizations given the PQA award. but only a very few schools in the Philippines are given the PQA award. Okay, and schools with PQA award, especially if you're already an ISO certified with higher level of accreditation, then you have QA already put in place, which assures that the graduates of the school are comparable and competitive, okay, employable abroad. So that's in the concept of the quality assurance in the Philippines. Okay. Now, what are the fundamental challenges with pandemic and the post-pandemic era? Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic, okay, which all countries underwent, brought massive global disruption from one crisis to another. Health, economic, social, political, even all schools. All schools are forced to conduct online classes because the residential face-to-face classes or mode are prohibited. So the leadership efficacy is challenged. Leaders in all sectors around the world are disoriented and imperiled. The question now is, what leadership style or styles are appropriate for a perilous pandemic? And what do leaders need to prepare if another pandemic comes out? Okay. If I may start the discussion by citing one journalist, no, in Australia, no, who said that pandemics bring out the best and worst in people. If you believe that people are inherently nice and honest, a pandemic is a great way to prove the thesis. On the other hand, it also brings out the pan scam, the worst in us, no? Those who would profiteer from the pain of others. So marami ding mga tao who would take advantage of the suffering of our fellow men. And the pandemic will just bring out the best or the worst in us. So, according to Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's soul. For consolation, our leadership mettle is both tested and strengthened in emergency situations. That's why in my book, Peripatetic Lesson Number 1, good leaders grow in adversity. If we survive this COVID pandemic, okay, it is like coming out from a battle. Then leaders will become battle tested. Leaders are battle tested, okay, if we survive the pandemic. So these are the times that try men's soul. The pandemic crisis shall end only if we develop herd immunity. And herd immunity refers to two, no? The natural immunity or vaccine and the natural immunity or the so-called convalescent plasma. Okay, that's the natural immunity. Okay, what is this herd immunity? It became popular in the medical field in the 1900s, no? When a group of scientists led by Dr. Hedrich introduced the concept of herd immunity in his journal. Dr. Hedrich was documenting cases of the measles outbreaks in the US, and he observed that as many children recovered and became immune, meaning cannot be infected anymore, the spread of the measles virus also drastically reduced. And the phenomenon of getting immune in larger populations resulted in the popular theory of the herd immunity. In herd immunity, the vaccinated protect the unvaccinated. Okay, it's like many of the diseases, no? Pag na dengue ka, for example, you cannot anymore have that kind of dengue strain. You will be infected with dengue only of a higher strain. Okay, so that is natural herd immunity. No? Human beings possess the capacity to develop immunity by being infected but overcome through antibodies, so-called natural immunity, or by vaccination, the so-called unnatural immunity. As a theory, herd immunity is supposed to provide some form of indirect and preventive protection from infections. That is the importance of herd immunity. Okay? It acts like the umbrella that provides cover from getting wet in the rain. Okay? It provides cover from getting wet. No? The other metaphor would be the firewall, okay, that provides protection from getting infected from electronic virus. Okay. Now, while waiting for for the medical convalescent or the medical herd immunity, this is the question. No? The immunity seems very unlikely as of now. There is no end in sight yet for the crisis. How are leaders to lead? And this is the question for both the pandemic crisis and even the post-pandemic era. No? When you say post-pandemic era, apparently you already have received the lowest figure. The rate of infection is very slow, but still there's no vaccine yet, and the plasma is not yet discovered. So how are leaders to lead? Okay, leaders try very hard to overcome by thinking out of the box or even changing the box. Okay, meaning we have to go out of our usual ways of doing things, the so-called normal. That's why they said pandemic is living in the new normal. Why new normal? Because we have to have the new box. Okay, we have to think outside of our comfort zone. So, while waiting for the medical convalescence, we can cultivate leadership convalescence. And this is my proposal for leaders. No? To cultivate leadership convalescence, to promote social convalescence or collective resilience. And I call this the leadership convalescence, which serve as the umbrella. While waiting for the vaccine and the convalescent plasma, we can also serve as leadership umbrella. We can promote leadership convalescence. So if you will ask me, what are the traits or features of a leadership convalescence? No? There are about 5 features of leadership convalescence. 1, let us continue to provide hope to our people. Let us continue to be the first to always inspire people, to continue to provide hope. And we have to be the first to sacrifice, to demonstrate leadership by example. It's difficult. It's a difficult call for leaders to sacrifice, to demonstrate leadership by example. In the Philippines, if you would know, many of the academic managers, okay, because of the difficulties in the enrollment, academic, economic difficulties, we have reduced enrollment. And as a result, in the private schools, many have been furloughed or no salaries at all. Sometimes reduced take-home pay. And that includes the leaders and academic managers. Ang pangit naman kung ang nabawasan na ng sweldo ang mga teachers, hindi kasama ang mga academic managers. Diba? For the information of those abroad, in the Philippines already, no? In Manila, last 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, the count was that already 400 schools closed because of reduced enrollment. We're not able to prepare, no online classes. Okay? In Davao alone, or in Region 11 alone, 15 schools already closed. That's 15 out of 10,000 businesses already closing. So that's too much, basically. And then the third feature would be a leadership to protect what is good for the common good. Concept of collective resilience. That's why what is happening in the US is a very good case study because they have very strong sense of individual freedom. Okay, and then the collective freedom is secondary. No? So this is a very good case of the kind of leadership there. No? So what do I mean with what is good for the common good during the pandemic or the post-pandemic? Continue to follow health safety protocols as recommended by the World Health Organization. Basically, we can only do the wearing of face masks, washing hands, maintaining social distance. No? And the fourth feature is peripatetic leadership, to walk the talk. What does it mean to walk the talk? No? We are all silent in words, but loud in action. Good leaders do not talk the talk or lip service. Okay? Good leaders walk the talk. We are silent in words, but loud in action. Be inspired with that. No? We are silent in words, but loud in action. Your performance, your action will precede your reputation. And the last feature would be compassion to your flock, encourage herd umbrella for social convalescence. Kumbaga, sabay-sabay tayo dito to survive. While we are waiting for our scientists and medical professionals to discover the vaccine and the convalescent plasma, we can do our part. Okay? As positive and prolific academicians, we can do leadership convalescence with all of the 5 features. And the central theme of the 5 features is that the peripatetic leadership, no? Silent in words, but loud in action. Okay? Silent in words, but loud in action. And peripatetic leadership requires us to purify our principles and navigate our positions in the organization, in the society. Otherwise, we will be doing something that we hardly believe in. This is my very, very, very favorite of mine, from my peer reviewer of the book, my book, Dr. Tihanki from LaSalle, who said, otherwise, we will just be doing many things that we hardly believe in if we don't adopt peripatetic leadership. That's very difficult, no? To do some things that we hardly believe in. That's painful, actually. No? Most of all, what greatly matters is what mark we leave among our fellow men. Reputation counts. According to Stephen Covey, in his habit number 9, leave this world better than it was when you got here. And you can say, mission accomplished. And related to that, my favorite Athenian oath when I had my training in the US, no? In my school, we had the foyer. In the foyer, inscribed in the giant wall is the Athenian oath, the ancient Greek philosophic oath of all free governments and democratic states, of all the world's visionaries, leaders, and managers. In short, in brevity, the Athenian oath would state like this: no? To leave this community, or to leave this organization, to leave this office, to leave this position better than we found it. Better, prettier, more beautiful than we found it. So that when you go, then you leave that position better than when you started in the first day. And that's the Athenian oath, the mark of good leaders. No? So I think this is my my last slide. No? Thank you very much. No? If I may cite one of the very famous Jesuit priests, no? In both public and private schools, there is hunger for good leaders who embody what is good in us as a people and what we could still become if we sincerely work for it. Not leaders who simply personify our collective faults and magnify them on a devastating scale. We feel embarrassed with this national scandal of enjoying good schools and enduring bad governance. Academic managers, academicians, we all play a very big role to shape our society, our community. Thank you very much. Daghang salamat. Jem, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Amorado. So that was a very thought-provoking and insightful presentation indeed. The knowledge you imparted have truly enlightened all of us, especially with regards to academic management, leadership, especially during this time of the pandemic. We will also be we are delighted to, we will open the chat box for questions, which will later be answered by our keynote speaker. All right. So, yes, Sir Donji.
I would like to read some of our participants' comments.
Yes, Sir Donji. Yes, your microphone. All right. Okay, yes.
Say it later.
Uh,
I'm gonna change.
Okay, yes, Sir Donji.
Hello? I can still hear some background.
Okay.
How about that, Miss Jem? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Okay, yes, yes.
Okay, so let me read some of our what for this participants' comments. Okay, so where was that? According to Mr. Luis Limbo, it is a very informative webinar. He learned a lot. Okay, and according to Miss Lorna Llaneza, she said that the best webinar I have attended. So many concepts to become a good leader and a manager. Wow, Dr. Amorado, Doc. Okay, so we also have here Miss, who's this? Miss Maria Relin. She said that this is a very informative session. Okay, what else? A very powerful discussion according to Miss Beverly Andrade. According to Mr. Lendon Perante, very fruitful discussion. Okay, and according to Miss Mary Grace Federico, Miss Jem. She said this is an informative session for being such an inspiration. Wow, what a positive feedback from our participants, Dr. Amorado. Okay, go back to Miss Jen.
All right. So you can actually leave your comments. Your questions, which later will be addressed by our resource speaker. So as of now, we have one pending question. So we encourage everyone to drop a question so that our resource speaker will be able to address or answer it later. So yes. All right. So we have our reactors. We have 3 reactors. All are. We are proud to say that they're all proud products of Inter-Asian International Education. So first, you would like to hear from Sir. I'll introduce first Sir Marvin Recuenco. He is a social studies teacher from Satri Vitaya School. All right, Sir Marvin. Sir Marvin.
Okay. Pleasant afternoon to every one of us, especially for our keynote speaker, Dr. Amorado. And this is very, very timely presentations. And I really expect so much about this because this will be a great help for us as a teacher. And I believe Dr. Amorado presented us the important elements that can respond to some of the questions, how we can keep the momentum in online learning, especially nowadays that we have so many challenges along the way. So here's my reaction. The knowledge on what type of academician I should be, I think that's a great question that I always want to ask to myself. Even though I know to myself that I need more time to flourish my potential as a teacher, as an educator. But this presentation of Dr. Amorado allowed me to revisit my purpose in life, especially as a teacher, because there is nothing more rewarding than knowing and seeing the evidence that I have made an impact on someone's life or multiple lives. Impact. That's exactly what I want to spontaneously create. But I seriously ask myself how. And I think you're also asking yourself many times how. In years to come, when my students tell others about their schooling during the COVID-19 pandemic, what do I want them to remember about my teaching methods? Surely, I want them to remember that they had a teacher who cared about what they were going through, who assigned materials that mattered and who helped them maintain some sense of normalcy while the rest of the world was falling apart. But this is all easier said than done. Teaching during a pandemic is a new challenge for most educators, and we're all still figuring out a rhythm that works. Our webinar imparted the important knowledge of positive academics, emphasizing the essence of becoming hopeful and anticipative as a fine opportunity in times of adversity. This mainly the reason why I do not let the stress of the coronavirus pandemic dampen dampen my love for teaching. I think the knowledge on prolific academics highlighted the important point of becoming an active contributor rather than being contented of mere credentials and position. Because right now I'm a team leader for foreign department in our school, but I think I realize right now that I think I should be contented with that. This reminded me that the participation and ability to take action is worth doing. The need for online teaching strategies are vital, and the experiences for utilizing educational technology are beneficial in order to build a strong online community for teachers and students, wherein active learning are facilitated and well monitored. With this, I want to focus on providing accurate, helpful, and engaging materials like breaking learning like into smaller sessions that are easily digested by anxious students, and having regular live chats like on video tutorials to ensure my students are grasping the work assigned. On the other hand, the aim of becoming peripatetic it's anchored to being an educator who just do not teach by what they say, but they teach by what they do. This absolutely sets the challenge of being a role model. But this must be exploding from the inside out. As a teacher, I simply see the application of this through obedience towards schedule. Proper time handling can be observed clearly by our students because children thrive when they have consistency and routine in their lives. And that includes their online classes. Once I make a class schedule, I do not deviate from it. This is simply a walk your talk real scenario. Meanwhile, I am very fortunate that I am a teacher, and that gives me the leadership ability to influence and inspire my learners and others. This put me in authority to manage things with equity, be responsible and accountable in every activity that I am going to plan and execute. From peripatetic lesson number 104, leadership development is a lifetime work in progress. I absolutely agree with that one because I believe that learning must be continuous. Continuous learning is part of that process. As I can see it, leadership requiring optimism. And when this optimism is one of the important attributes of becoming a charismatic leader, so when optimism is fully developed, it will enable someone to embrace cultural differences and break the boundaries. Today's global adversity due to pandemic gives us opportunity, to me especially, to unleash the expert power in me. I think the expert power in you, to all of us. We discovered useful strategies in designing learning materials which are responding to the need of our online students. Like I remember last time, all summer camp was canceled, totally canceled, but we were able to facilitate a virtual English camp still. And we leveraged the free online tools to support virtual learning. Hence, we don't let the chaos of this pandemic ruin our love for teaching or our students' love for learning. We can find ways to be an effective, attentive teacher amidst the madness happening around the world. Teachers can help students in the age of coronavirus by being available, communicative, and by supplying an education that matters a lot. The power to make an impact, the ability to influence, and the passion to inspire defines the purpose of our existence with so much value within. Thank you, Dr. Amorado, for this meaningful presentation. Kokon Kap.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Marvin. Sir Marvin briefly shared to us how he will put to use, okay, the knowledge that he gained this afternoon to his line of work. Aside from a teacher, he's also like, you are the leader,
Team
head
leader.
of the foreign teachers in your school, right? Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Marvin. Now, we will also be hearing from our second reactor is Mr. Fritz Marvin Aguto. So he is a science teacher from Bangklongmusai School. And he will be sharing to everyone his a brief reflection about today's webinar. So Sir Fritz Marvin.
Hi, hello, good afternoon, attendees and panelists. So I'm very honored to be invited to be one of the reactors in this webinar, and I'm so happy that Dr. Amorado shared his very timely and relevant uh, concept about academic management and leadership challenges in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. So for my reflection, what I learned is that academic leaders play an important and integral role in the institution as they are leading, managing, and administering systems. So they are the ones who set the vision for reform and facilitate structural changes in the organization for innovation and provide solutions to varied types of problems and challenges in the institution. And aside from that, they are indeed have a challenging role and task to do, for they need to have the influence, as what Dr. Amorado said, for them to be called leaders. So being an influencer, so it allows you to gather followers who would believe in you, okay? Therefore, leaders need to embody this kind of personality, because without influence, you'll never lead others. So for no one will follow you. And to gain that influence, you need to gain the trust of your people or your member and live by what you teach and preach. On the other hand, leadership development is a spontaneous process of work, as it gives impact to how you handle difficult situations and manage your people by enhancing their individual and team capabilities for sustainable organizational results over time. So the leader can respond positively to every difficult situation as he involved his member in decision making and planning. So it's not always the leader who would do such thing, but for the progress of the organization, he must do the collaboration work with his members. Okay, so a good leader motivates his members and work hand in hand with them in finding solutions to the problem and by pursuing their desire in achieving a goal. And in relation to the function of leaders amid the crisis caused by the pandemic, it redirects their plans and reforms their systems necessary to what is badly needed at the present situation. Therefore, part of the academic management to address this issue is to allow the transition of physical teaching and learning to another platform of instruction delivery using the technology, which is we are doing at the moment. So remote teaching and learning facilitates boundless area of delivering information without risking the safety of all individuals in the institution. So as my conclusion, during this most critical situation that we are currently experiencing, so leaders must keep full responsibility and provide inspiration to all. They are likely the frontliners that serve as our shield and protectors for the welfare of everybody while keeping their aim in delivering quality education. Thank you again for this very insightful webinar.
All right, thank you so much, Sir Fritz Marvin. All right, so our last reactor for this afternoon is an EFL teacher from Anuban Non-Taburi School. Let us all welcome Mr. Gary Kapili.
First of all, I would like to greet our queen in Thailand, Queen Sirikit, a happy birthday. That's why I'm wearing blue. And thank you, Dr. Amorado, for this wonderful presentation today. In this pandemic era, a lot of challenges arise. In fact, they come one after another. This COVID-19 has caused so much disruption in our lives, academia, in our jobs, and even a disruption in our effort to chase our dreams. But this is also our wake-up call from our slumbering leadership in us. It's time to take heed of the call. Let us all be leaders in whatever fields we are tending. This webinar of Dr. Ronnie Amorado is timely and relevant to us as educators, as community leaders, learners, future administrators, and present administrators. Thank you for this opportunity to learn and to be challenged. One of the biggest challenges that our guest speaker pointed out today is to be a peripatetic leader. We do not only talk, but we influence, we inspire, we optimize, and we execute. We should be positive and prolific academicians who create and impact and aspire in doing something different, something that others couldn't even dare to dream. The academicians who remain hopeful and steadfast in finding opportunity in this adversity. We should not be disposable academicians who are only satisfied with the degrees that we have and never seek greater things and opportunities beyond being a daily teacher. We should not be acerbic academicians who are only good at criticizing without even providing positive contribution. We need to walk the talk. We need to be a role model. We need to be the kind of leaders that influence the system positively. This is our call. Rise up. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sir, Gary, hey.
All right, thank you so much, Sir Gary, Sir Marvin, Sir Fritz, who have just recently shared their reactions regarding today's webinar. So I would like to request Sir Donji to please read the questions. There are 4 questions, by the way, Sir Amorado. So we would like you to share. So we are going to read to you the questions from our participants or attendees today.
Okay, so Dr. Amorado, a question coming from Mr. Albert Hubilo. Can you describe a type of leadership best for academic institutions?
Okay. During the pandemic transition, I'll have to go back to leadership convalescence, okay, as effective leadership style for academic institutions for the pandemic period. Okay, but if we go back and if we survive the crisis and go back to the normalcy, I think we need leaders, academic leaders, who promote more of seekers of knowledge. Because the problem now in many of the institutions, many of those who got their PhDs or who are promoted or who are distinguished in their field, they are all promoted and take on administrative positions, and they stop to function as seekers of knowledge. We need to continue more of the scientists, the gurus, the seekers of knowledge basically, and not trapped, okay, by just being as administrators of knowledge. And for those of the academicians who are holding managerial positions, who are the managers of knowledge, I hope let us not stop doing, let us not stop seeking knowledge also, and that means being prolific and positive academicians. Now, definitely. Lesson number 1 there in peripatetic, the tone at the top defines the mood of the organization. So we hope academic leaders will go back to its tradition of knowledge seekers, and allow people, provide the conducive environment for academicians to really do their tradition.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Amorado. And Doc, we also have another question coming from Mr. Daniel Conkel. He asked, in this COVID era of education, What can a good leader do to address poor or inadequate infrastructure at schools in order to provide effective online learning? Again, in this COVID era of education, what can a good leader do to address poor or inadequate infrastructure at schools in order to provide effective online learning?
That's a very good question, but it's very difficult to answer, no? Because I have another webinar to complement remote teaching and learning. It's called Remote Integrity and Accountability. And there I discussed the problems with modular learning, the mode of learning, because you don't have the benefit of online infrastructure or internet infrastructure. And therefore, leadership there is very, very difficult. Why? Because if you don't have the infrastructure, you resort to modular. Modular mode of learning is the most difficult and the most vulnerable to academic fraud. And then it's difficult to assess. You are all constrained with the quarantine conditions. What kind of leadership there? You need to do a lot of navigating. Okay. A couple of days ago, I gave the same lecture to the Commission of Higher Education, HEIs sponsored by the special project, and many of the schools coming from Sulu and Tawi-Tawi asked the same question. It's difficult. It's very challenging. There's no hard and fast rule. I don't have automatic answers. My only answer is that hopefully leaders, academic leaders, are able to navigate properly. Okay. And if you survive that, then you have gained your experience and you become battle tested. And please tell us, share to us if you're able to find the victory for that. No? But it's very, very difficult.
Okay, I hope Mr. Daniel, Dr. Amorado answered your question. And Doc, we have a last question we have a last question. A question coming from Mr. Who's this? Let me check. From Mr. Richard Chang, he asked, as a subordinate in a workplace, how should we address a leader who doesn't communicate well? Does his or her own idea for the office or company without asking for advices or thoughts from everyone else?
Very good question. Now, well, I have one lesson in very pathetic book. You think like your boss. So if you are in his or her place, what are you thinking? Okay, that's one. Second, just navigate. Okay, that is his style. Try to complement. Just perform. You know, performance is the best argument you can have. Okay, just do your work. I hope you have a very clear job description so that you'll be able to execute. If you don't have very clear job description, try to reach out. Okay, try to navigate. Again, in peripatetic leadership, silent in words but loud in action. You don't when we say you navigate, there are many strategies there in my book. No, I hope we can really pursue a deeper discussion on this through the executive course, because some I would recommend, depending on your situation, you can do scarcity techniques or the extinction technique. Okay, for now, just go scarce first. For now, just go extinct. Or you can do a lot of backdoor techniques. So there are many techniques actually in the book. No, there are no hard and fast rule. It depends on your actual context. But thanks for that question. Yes, it's difficult. If I have to borrow John Maxwell's 360 degrees leadership, lead up, manage your boss. Okay, think like your boss, and see how it evolves.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Amorado. Okay, so now let's proceed, Miss Jem, for our takeouts. So, are you ready? Reactors first for their takeouts of this international webinar on international webinar on academic management and leadership challenges in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. So first, our reactor, Mr. Gary Kapili, one statement as your takeout from this webinar.
Okay, good afternoon once again. one-liner, right? We should be the greatest leaders that the world has ever known. This is a great challenge.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Gary. And let's proceed to Mr. Fritz. Okay, Sir Fritz, it's your turn to give your takeouts. One-liner takeout, sir.
So for me, we have to lead by example.
Lead by examples. Well, congratulations. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Fritz. And the last one, the last for our reactor, Mr. Marvin Recuenco. Sir.
We should never stop learning.
Never stop learning. Thank you so much for that. And the last but not the least, our keynote speaker, our resource speaker, Dr. Ronnie Amorado. Sir, one-liner takeout to our participants and to our reactors.
Silent words but loud in action.
That's really short and very powerful, sir. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Miss Jen.
All right, so for our last part of the webinar, we are going to take a picture of all the attendees, also for attendance checking. All right, so I would like to request everyone to turn on your videos. Please turn on your videos, your video cameras, so that we can take a picture with everyone. All right, so we're requesting all the participants to turn on their cameras. Can I turn it on? Sorry.
Our attendees. Yan. Kita niyo mo? I have photos of the list of the participants, Miss Jan. So that it's our guidelines for the issuance of the certificate. And we would like to inform all participants to wait up until 7 days to process your certificate. Okay? We will just send it directly to your email address. Okay?
3 o'clock.
Ms. Jan, your microphone, please.
Here with the reactors and the resource speaker. So just quickly smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we really appreciate Dr. Ronnie Amorado for sharing his expertise to all the educators, not only here in Thailand, but also the neighboring countries. Yeah, so we really would like to also thank all the attendees, our participants who took some time to be with us this afternoon. Thank you very much, not only those who are in Thailand or in the Philippines, but also those coming from other parts of the world.
Yes, we would like to acknowledge our participants from India, United States of America, Bangladesh, Thailand, Myanmar, and Philippines, especially Philippines. Thank you so much for joining our international webinar. See you soon, because we will not stop here. This is our first, and we will still have a lot of international webinars for free. Thank you so much, participants. Have a great day. Kap kun krap. Thank you.
Bye.